All right. Give me the clap. Welcome back to Weebology, everybody. I am your uplifted yet disturbed Professor Ricky.
Hey, I'm your other Professor Ethan.
I'm uplifted because I think I finally understood. Everyone's kind of been bitching about the daylight savings lately.
Have they?
Well, I mean, a couple of people in my life have. And
it feels like nobody showed up to work at my place for the last, week and a half easily.
Well, you lost an hour. I think that's what it is, right? But you don't lose. You just gain another area. And driving over to the lab, it was still light out.
That's true.
And I may be leaving when it's still light out. Good old summer vibes. They're there. They're around.
There's a 0% chance that it'll still be light out.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But I was feeling uplifted because, hey, it's still light out when I'm driving over to the lab. I'm not coming in here in complete darkness. I can still feel like I'm getting something done in my day.
It's definitely really the only benefit to the spring forward, because all through the winter I was running, right, after work, and it was already pitch black basically.
Doesn't feel good for the soul.
After 6.
Yeah.
Well, running in the dark isn't that easy.
Or safe.
Well,
unless you have one of those lit vests on. Do you have a lot of PPE in the way of light when you run?
I just stay on the sidewalks. If you run my ass over on the sidewalk, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do wearing a lit vest.
That's true. Yeah. Protect yourself from an SUV because you're lit up.
I mean,
no,
right?
No. But I'm a little bit disturbed because I got a notification today, something I sent you and Patbot in our chat from Papa John's.
Yeah.
And I've noticed this trend lately in advertisement notifications and emails to me, and I imagine a lot of you as well, but Papa John's phrased their notification as, hey, craving that pizza? Don't fight that feeling.
Pizza.
Order now. I'm like, dude, you sound like a 90s movie drug dealer.
100%.
What the fuck? I remember a couple days ago, Credit Karma said, winky face, your credit score went up.
Yeah.
We like what we see. Go ahead and check those digits. I'm like, what the I'm getting hit on by my credit score. Right. I'm getting drug dealt to my pizza provider, my pizza plug, if you will. I'm like, what?
I mean, Uber Eats is pretty bad, too. They'll be like, hey, we noticed that it's probably dinner time. You should probably check out Uber Eats.
Yeah, right. We noticed you haven't had Uber Eats in a while. You want another hit? You want another hit of that good stuff?
The thing that's annoying is I only get really, a large smattering of notifications from them after, the day after I'd already ordered from them.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's like, I just gave you money. Shut the fuck up.
It's the microtransactions of food ordering. How
100%.
Dare they? I already gave them some money.
And I don't even get a cool gun skin, you know?
Yeah, right. Give me the CSGO shit.
Right.
Let me gamble for my sides.
Right?
It's pretty evil. It's pretty devilish, to be honest.
Yeah.
Speaking of devilish.
Nice.
Thank you. We're going to talk about a show today that I think was wrecked either directly or indirectly by the folks in the Discord, which you can get in for $1 and up, patreon.com/Weebology, that, it was touted as quite a pretty good horror outing, but I kind of beg to differ.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go ahead and say it was bad. I think it had a pretty weak start, but it had a pretty solid landing. But all things considered, it was more slice of life than horror.
Right.
And I wanted to talk about why it maybe was more successful as slice of life, but the horror element they tried to use to subvert the genre they were in didn't quite land the way they were hoping. And a lot of other people told me, oh, it's a good horror show. Not quite so.
Yeah.
So, Ethan, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the very recent show, Mieruko-Chan.
Yes.
And I do have an immediate thing I want to bitch about.
Go ahead. You know what?
The entire show, they called the main character Miko.
Yes, her name was Miko Yotsuya.
And the question I have is, where the fuck did Mieruko-Chan come
Mieruko-Chan?
from?
Yeah, where was that? That never was that. I don't know if it's a translation thing but I looked everywhere. There was no translation for it. So it must have been her name or something? I'm not quite sure.
I'm hoping that Miko was just a little cute nickname
That's where my head
that
was
bubbly chick gave her.
Yeah, Hana.
Yeah, Hana, and
Yeah.
then like stuck
Yeah.
kind of thing.
But they never laid out Mieruko-Chan from the rip. Like, so it was never like, my name is X, and then it was just called Miko for the rest. It was Miko from the jump, and just never explained.
So it kind of feels like to me they should have just named the show Mieruko-Chan.
Yes. So I don't know if this one's not so hot off the presses. I think it was last season, or was it just finishing up this season? I think I need to know the hotness of this press before we start.
2021, I 2021 think, winner.
Okay. So what we have in this show is what they tote themselves as is a horror / comedy slice of life. And that's cool. I ain't gonna knock that off the rip.
I did find it kind of odd that you would be like, all right, let's do a horror show, but the subgenre comedy 1,000,000%.
But here's the thing. That in the past, I think, has worked. The thing that immediately comes to mind is a movie on Netflix. I think you can still watch that on Netflix. Was called Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I don't know if you ever watched this movie, Ethan.
I have no recollection of what you're talking about.
And this is important to bring up because this is a really categorical, achievement of the merging of these two genres of horror and comedy. This live action movie is two hillbillies who wanted to go out to one of their cabins for a relaxing, no nonsense, just fishing and drinking weekend, like real classic, redneck shit. And in the same woods are a gaggle of teenagers that meet these individual rednecks and get a weird vibe off of them. And through the fault of the teenagers, slowly off themselves one by one, but the scene consistently looks like the hillbillies or the rednecks were the ones who killed them. So it looks like a horror movie from a third-person perspective, but because we're following the rednecks, it's a comedy. Because it's like, we didn't do any of these things, but because it's a situational comedy, the horror lands and alludes and augments the comedy. So I know that this genre can work. What we have here is a little bit less than that. We have this character, like I had mentioned before, Miko Yotsuya, who suddenly gains the ability to see the supernatural.
Right.
See spirits, good, bad, or otherwise. And I don't know, from the rip, did you feel like this was an interesting concept from like episode 1 or 2? Like, you think that at least the premise had legs? Or did you kind of maybe wrote it off a bit early?
I was worried about, I don't know, I hate when shows just give somebody a power and have no interest at all in explaining it. Or like a curse for some, in this case, I think, where it's really they give her the sight, she sees all these disgusting things all over the place.
Yeah.
And she's honestly has an ironclad will to just play it off as never having seen them, which I did like that. But explain to me where the fucking comedy is or the horror. It is they're I think rightfully creepy.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But I almost call this creepy slice of life would be my two genres.
I was thinking of titling this episode "Slice of the Afterlife."
That's pretty good.
Thank you, man. I was thinking about that one earlier today.
Hey, that's all I asked for.
That's all you need, just a little creativity. But a couple things off the rip, some good, some bad. One, there is no reason, like Ethan had mentioned, that Miko can now see these things, but her initial knee-jerk reaction is to ignore these spirits outright, literally inches from her face. These horrors, truly...
Let me ask you a question. I know where you're going with this.
Thank you. Okay.
My question to you is, has it ever happened to you where you're by yourself at home, okay? And you think you see somebody out of the corner of your eye in your room or something?
Weirdly, yes, I have done that.
But do you freeze and just try to understand whether you're actually seeing somebody? Or do you jump into action and start screaming and hollering?
No. And here's why.
I freeze and I just stare and I'm what the fuck am I looking at?
Yeah, you just kind of you're real late at night. You're kind of watching some YouTube super late 1 a.m.
Yeah.
and you're like, just maybe catch something from the corner of your eye. I'm like, am I dreaming or what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The difference between us and Miko is that for her, it's not a glimpse, corner of the eye. It is literally dead fucking in front of her face. She mentioned episode 1, one of the spirits was there for 20 minutes in her bathroom. This isn't something that is like, oh, it's like a random flash. You can write it off to a dream, right? Miko literally stares into the soulless black holes of eyes of these yokai and just, like, have to reconcile with her vision, right? There's no dream write-off here, you know?
Yeah, what I would have liked to see would be, I mean, I think they do an okay job later showing some, like, fear starts, like,
oh, no, for sure.
sneaking in.
Yeah,
but
for
early
sure.
on, she was just, like, very, very, like, stone-faced. But I think for me, instantly, like, the first episode, there was, like, multiple ass shots of her, like, in her underwear or, like, in the shower, and I'm just like, what is this?
You're just stacking on things I have to respond to. So let me itemize this response.
Okay, I love it.
Yes. 1, I did not like the fact that she was so weirdly mentally adamant against what is clearly a supernatural phenomena happening to her.
It's insanely unlikely.
It is unlikely that someone who is presented with this reality would just be like, if I don't react, they're not going to hurt me. There is no reason for her to actually believe that.
Absolutely no.
Off the rip. And what's even worse, for a while in this show, but not the entire show, and I'll get into that way later in the episode, she has no reason to believe that her inability to react to these demons, like her stone cold demeanor and her lack of reactivity in the face of these spirits, would allot her some safety in this moment. There's no reason for her to understand that. So the fact that she did it, and then it became a canon rule of the series, was really, really conceited. Really kind of poor writing, in my opinion. Just suddenly, like, she just happened to land on the right rule, and it didn't become validated until, like, episode 6 or 7. But we'll get into that.
Unless it's a, like, Japanese culture thing we don't know about.
That is the one thing I did consider, that we are lacking in some kind of spirit or yokai lore that we would have been maybe taught as Japanese children if we were to be such. But we weren't. So we don't know.
Little American boys.
We're little American boys. We see ghosts, we run the fuck out of the house.
See ya!
See ya! Yep. This place is haunted. I'm going to send it to YouTube, and I'm going to leave. I'll get my views, I'll get my likes, and I'm out. I'm done.
Except nobody can see the things.
No one can see the things, right?
I think it would have been maybe a little more interesting for me if, like, the very beginning of the show, she, like, slipped on something in the bathroom and hit her head.
Yeah.
She gets up groggily, and then all of a sudden she can see them. Like, at least there'd be, like, some reason.
Actually, you know what? What's interesting is I am not too upset of not getting an explanation as to why she suddenly gained that power. I'm cool with that. We get that a lot. ReZero is a good example. He gets transported, and to this day, we don't have an explanation as to why he was transported.
Yeah, but there was, like, an outside force. Like, remember? Because like, when he was trying to look back into his memories or whatever, that black thing was like, no, bitch, you can't see this.
Fair. So we know that there may be a reason, but we weren't told for, like, 2 seasons. He was just transported.
Well, that was in season 1 when that happened. So, like, you knew there was some reason he was isekai'd, okay?
He didn't die. He just, like, got literally voip.
Right.
He just, like, voiped to another world.
Which is fine.
But it's fine there.
This is different, though.
Why is it? Like, why can suddenly something out of the ordinary happen to one and not have an explanation? And that's fine.
But there is an explanation. You just don't know the answer to it. This does not seem to have an explanation.
I don't think we were alluded to the fact that there was an explanation until later in the show for ReZero. We do now know on the other side.
I disagree, but that's totally
fine.
We haven't seen ReZero in years, so us arguing about a plot point is pretty dumb.
Fair. That's just the first thing I thought. Like, of any show that didn't have an explanation for why things were happening, there's a plethora of shows, but that was the first one to come to mind. we can definitely drudge up other things, but that's neither here.
But I feel
nor
like
there.
something like this, right? Like, think about Mob Psycho. From the very beginning of the show, you know he's got these powers.
So that's actually
it's not something that just like shows up.
That's a pretty apt comparison, I would say, because the whole demonology thing,
Right.
this whole thing. But fine, I'll leave you with that one. Us not knowing, or its reason not being shown is a bit frustrating.
Well,
I'll admit.
And here's why I think that. Because it leaves like such a weird gap in like her character. Like, why would you not be losing your effing mind if you just randomly started seeing these things?
That's more of my issue.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not about the reasoning. It's about her reaction to it.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like double weird if there was no like striking point to where you start seeing these things.
Yeah.
Like, she's in the bathroom and then that's the time that it starts striking. Like, it's just odd.
Its origin does not preclude her from reacting in this ironclad, like, mental state.
What I'm saying is she'd be double weird that she's able to be ironclad. Like,
okay,
if you hit your head and then you're like, oh, I hit my head.
Right,
You know, like, at least you could make that argument that, okay, she knows there's a reason why she sees this shit.
Yeah,
She was close to death.
Yeah.
And then now she's able to sort of like add those mental barriers, put up that mental fortress.
Fair. Okay.
Whereas like when you have no, like it just pops up out of nowhere, I would be losing my freaking gourd over this stuff.
Freaking gourd.
And I gotta say, her like deadpan reaction to these things does really, in my opinion, detract from the horror aspect and the comedy aspect.
You like I said, you're just itemizing. You're just teeing me up, boy.
Yeah.
You're just teeing me up. Let's hit that Ichi thing real quick, because that was the next thing you said.
Yes.
This show is.
Thing.
God damn it, you're right. Ecchi. It'll never go away from me. I'm sorry. Yeah. Let's talk about number one, Ichi.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ecchi. This show is horny as fuck.
Which I was very blindsided by.
So I thought the entire show, well, one, I'll let you know, this show has no bitness showing us this kind of lewdness. Like,
right.
Why? What is it adding? This truly is, we have had a lot of ecchi conversations in the past, some additive, some nominal, some detracting. This feels detracting, and I'm wondering why. Did you think of a reason why? I only thought of one.
I just think it's a big, like, to me, it just is a tonal shift in like a creepy situation that you're just like, okay, now I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that before I say my opinion about why it's here, there is kind of a running legacy of sexualized characters in horror as a whole. You know, there's the common trope of hot chick in the horror movie. You know, it's not that this is like the horror genre is devoid of this kind of sexualized character, but at the same time, I think what's happening here is that this show, at its roots, is really desperate to subvert the slice of life genre. And common in the slice of life genre, you have ecchi shit, right? So they felt as if they needed to inject it because they needed to make it feel like it's every other slice of life, but you have the horror element. So I feel like to subvert the genre, you have to have every trope present and then also have that other special sauce, right? And in this show, it's the quote-unquote horror, quote-unquote, in the heaviest air quotes possible. But I think that's what they're doing, right? They're adding it to make it feel like it's your common slice of life, but you also are having that subversion of horror. That's where I think it's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, entirely possible. It's just a very, like, strange... Like, after, you know, injecting those scenes into the show and watching it back, wouldn't you be like, well, this kind of really detracts from our horror aspect?
And that's kind of the problem, right? Is that the subversion that they use by injecting the horror genre, the other elements of slice of life that are common in anime shows of the other genre slice of life kind of move it away from that, because I never, except for the very end, I never got a moment where I could have been strapped into the horror. Because it was always moving to some half-assed joke or half-assed ecchi scene, something that pulled me back to slice of life before the horror really had a moment to grab me. And we've said that you're not the biggest fan of horror, right? You're not
right.
I am. So
I don't know. I've kind of like I've watched a lot more since we've been talking about it.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's just like getting older and realizing like if someone's gonna fucking kill me, it's gonna kill me kind of thing.
You're weirdly accepting of like a horror situation. So if you're in a horror movie, you're just like, you see Jason 7 foot tall towering above you, like,
I'm gonna run. If he's too fast, I'm gonna try to do something about it.
Right, but like if you're literally in like a back against the corner situation, you're like,
then I'm diving at him and I'm gonna try to.
So you're gonna do everything you can, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So in these moments, instead
but
of
I'm also not gonna be like, I'm not gonna be that person that just like freaks out so bad, like cowers into the wall, and then just like slides down the wall, and then he just stabs you.
But that's the money shot, dude.
That ain't me, bruh.
That's the money shot, dude.
I'm
like,
running. My fitness is insane right now.
It is
my
very
cardiovascular fitness is insane.
I do truly believe
I can run away from zombies for 10 straight miles and not have a problem.
UV Predator, you think you got him for a while?
No.
Okay, cool.
Have you seen the Predator?
I have seen the Predator.
Holy shit!
I thought you maybe could make it to like the final 3 in a movie.
His like gun thing though is unreal.
Right, but if you think of a crowd of 10, you could probably make it to final 3.
Who are my competitors?
Oh, that a random
All
assortment.
All Tier 1 operators.
Well, let's take a random assortment of the population. I don't know. Let's say a random grab of 10 people from I don't know this apartment complex. You think you got final 3 against the Predator?
I think I'd have final 3 just because I've thought about these situations.
As I'm saying, you've probably mentally prepped a lot of packs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you've been
I've
doing.
Seen what is it? Predator, so I know, dunk yourself in mud.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, erase your heat signature.
They're not going to know if you're cold. That's how it is.
Jump in the pool, maybe.
Oh, yeah, go to the pool.
Yeah,
the lab's got a pool, everybody.
Obviously.
We got amenities. You think we're doing this for funsies and, like, not having a pool?
Yeah,
Duh.
I think it would depend a lot on the, the battle arena that I was thrown into.
I'm thinking the woods around the lab. Like over there, kind of in the that area.
I know exactly where I'd go.
See? No, you thought about
the
this,
little
right?
River.
The little river.
The creek.
Yeah, the crick, if you will.
Yeah,
but
the crick.
All right, but lovely tangent. We know Ethan's a final 3er at least. Like he's making it at least an hour and 20 into the movie.
Final 3. I don't know, man. It really would depend. If you take the druggies from down the way, yeah, I'm good.
Sucking on the runoff.
Is it
from the
women
lab?
and children? Like, yeah, I win. Is it just other like?
I said random assortment of random 10 assortment.
Adult men? Then I don't know.
I just said random.
I don't know how they live. They might all be tier 1 operators.
They could be tier 1 operators.
One last job.
Coming out of retirement for this one.
Yeah.
So the best tangent.
They always
in the world.
bring me back.
That's the best tangent in the world. But yeah, so all of that considered, we have, like we said, anytime we get a moment of horror, at least in the first 50, 60%, we're pulled away
100%.
in a weird way to some etchy moment, to some slice life, to some comedy that's, the comedy is a bit half-assed. There are some, I would say on one hand I could count, and that's not a lot of fingers.
I never giggled.
There was like 1 or 2 times, so I was like, okay,
giggled.
that's pretty funny. But it like I said, it was.
You watched it in sub, I guess?
So what's funny enough is I watched it in sub up to episode 7, and then I watched it in dub so I can play Words with Friends.
Aha! So now you know the feel.
So I did both.
My man.
And I didn't actually hate the dub. I didn't hate it. Like it's still.
It was alright. I like Miko's voice.
Miko's voice was perfect for her role,
and
like kind of a
Hana's
downtrodden
voice for the role was extremely good too.
Yeah.
She was annoying as fuck.
Yulia was just as annoying as she was in sub, and it's all
Yulia.
good. Yulia. So, what's the next itemized thing on that list that you had mentioned? It was, let's talk about the horror, because the horror of this show, I actually went into the Anime Bros Discord to discuss this a bit. So I wanted to obscure a bit. I wanted to pull from the group. I want to pull from people away from your all-seeing eye, because I wanted to make sure that I could discuss it without you knowing my thoughts.
Interesting.
What I had said in that Discord was I would like to think of myself as a pretty big fan of horror. I like a lot of genres of horror. Everything but like slash and thrashers, like
which are my cup of tea.
That's your cup of tea. I like the supernatural, the cosmic, the analog. Like I'm big into a lot of, horror from the outside. Slasher and Thrasher is kind of the horror from the inside, like horror that could happen. Hills Have Eyes, like Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street wouldn't even fit in that category. That's, to me, that is
Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers, that's monster horror. Like, I think that's closer to Thrasher and Slasher than it would be for, kind of cosmic. It's monster horror, which is a little outside of my purview, but I can dig it. Like, The Thing is still one of the best of all time. But the horror genre is built on instilling fear. How does one do that? How do you instill fear in something? And there are two, in my mind, ways to do that.
Well, it's like mounting anticipation of some bad thing.
Of course, yes. So, in my mind, to mount that expectation, there are two ways to do it. There are laying out a clear set of stakes, consequences, and repercussions, or leverage heavy on the unknown. Think Annihilation. Think Arrival. Think
Annihilation.
Classic. I knew I can get you in when I said Annihilation. When you go cosmic and unknown, the mounting anticipation of the threat is our lack of knowledge. But the other way to do it is to elevate the repercussions and consequences and stakes by making them very well defined. Friday the 13th, right? If Jason catches you, what happens?
You die.
You get mincemeat, boy. Like, you're done. Like, if he catches you, you're done. And in most, if not all, of the Jason films,
you die.
If you're caught, you die. Like, there's no clearer stakes than that. So those two things are how you build that. Mieruko-Chan as a show kind of built itself in a way very uniquely where its elements worked against both of those ends.
Right.
The unknown is not so unknown because we have a weirdly clear defined set of rules. If they know they can see you, they can hurt you. If they can't.
But we never, until later in the show, saw any reason to believe that.
And here's the other side.
Here's what I didn't know either is there was a lot of opportunities or situations where you would see one of the yokai go through somebody or something. Could Mieruko do that? Because then she should have just walked straight through it and been like, this is not even scary to me.
That happened already in the alley with Hana after she bought the prayer beads. Right?
Yes.
She literally had to walk through that one, I call him Itchy Demon, because he was the strong enough one to understand all the other ones part the Red Seas because they all had prayer beads on that they bought at some convenience store. But to him, he just said, ooh, this is itchy. And then, boom, the prayer beads blew up.
The godmother gave him the beads.
Yes, you're right, thank you. The godmother gave him the beads. That was actually after, because they bought it at the convenience store, went through the alley, and that one with the chain around its neck followed them to the godmother. She gave them 2 sets, one cheap, one really well done, and then it exploded because he said super itchy, and the other demon came out of his mouth, and then boom, it blew off her wrist. But neither here nor there. All I'm saying is that the clearly defined set of rules had been laid out, but by no merit of evidence, right? Miko basically assumed that if they can see you and they knew they could see you, that they could hurt you physically. But in no way in the show, I mean from episode 1 to episode 12, was there ever an instance in the real world that a demon actually physically harmed another living being.
Right.
Never. So I'm like, these rules that they laid out in front of me were clearly defined, so that destroyed the unknown element of this. But
this some bullshit, you know what I'm saying?
It's some kind of some fucking bullshit,
they kind of
dude.
dog ass rats for that.
I'm gonna take them out back behind the shed, my dude.
Yeah, they're dog ass rats.
They're done. So those stakes that they had set up had no teeth,
right,
at all. So none of the demons had ever shown themselves to ever actually harm another living thing. Seer or not, knowledge or not, there was no set of circumstances that actually allowed them to hurt another human. So I ask you, Ethan, and I think the answer will be quite in line with what I'm trying to get here. What are you scared of in this show? Not a thing. There's nothing outside of my first actual highlight of the show that I'm actually scared of. But my one highlight is the demons were very, very well designed.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I definitely wanted to call out, like, as far as like the grudgy type yokai, or even a little bit like the what's his name, Junji Ito, like
it had some Junji Ito vibes.
Very heavily lined.
Yeah.
Very harsh.
Yeah.
I did like the juxtaposition of like the harsh miasma flowing around them, and then like
versus the real clean on model anime.
Very, very clean rest of the show.
So like I said,
I did want to call out, like, the art was very, very good.
Yes, the animation, and as your resident animation schmuck, I was a big fan of the way they used animation and juxtapose what is demonic and what is in the human realm, and they even played with that a bit, where there's some times where something would go from that clean line into the dirty to like show, because even to Miko's eye, some things weren't quite demonic until they revealed themselves, and they used animation to go show it basically deform from the clean lines to just this rancid looking animation. I'm like, okay, that's super dope. And I mentioned in that Discord in the Anime Bros, which you definitely should go listen to. I'm going to shout them out a bit, because we had a good conversation.
Yeah, they boys.
They boys. It's literally in the name. They're bros. Let's go. We talked in their Discord. We talked about how, like, that. What is the threat? If there is no threat, there is no fear. If there is no fear, there's no horror.
I think if I was Miko, I'd be more just like frustrated and annoyed, based on the fact that, like, it seems like she can't see past these things. So, like, to me, like, her vision would just be blocked nearly 100% of the time.
I think
like there's situations where she just like stands there and stares. And I do think they need to do a better job of showing, like, the rest of people being like, yo, Miko is weird now. You know, I think that would really, like, add to the show.
So they did do that in a pretty, not big, but notable way in the latter fourth. So there was a character that did, in fact, call that out, like, you're kind of a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
And he didn't say fucking, but he did say weirdo. Like, you're kind of a weirdo.
Was it her brother?
No, it was the teacher that was Zen, that later, through certain circumstances that I'll get into later in the episode, he called her out for being a weirdo, because he was a teacher at their school at some point later, which that's probably, which I'll say in a bit, was the scariest part of the entire show. Basically called her out like, you're a really weird kid, because he never did reveal to him that she could see spirits, but he did, through circumstantial evidence, because he's not a dumb, did kind of catch on.
Right.
Which is pretty dope.
I would say what would have been interesting, and there's like that train scene with that like super creepy guy
with the axe
walking down and just stabbing everyone in the head.
Now let's talk about that real quick.
I think it would have been more interesting if they had showed like some effect, because he was pulling stuff out of people. It would have been interesting if, like, they wake up or whatever, or they just like instantly get anxiety or something like that. Like, you see it on the character,
right?
But it showed like nothing.
So here's the thing, right? Is remember, I was texting you because you had told me like, hey, let me know when you get to this episode so we can binge together.
Yeah.
And I got there, and it was the next episode we started binging together, and I'm like, bro, like, the shit I was just talking about that I just mentioned right now, like, in episode 8. There's an axe-wielding demon that is literally slashing an axe, going down the line, and Miko, in her own head, is thinking, oh my god, I'm in danger. But we find out in a couple seconds that he's not actually hunting people. He's hunting demons that have attached themselves to people. And there's a couple things there that I wish they would have explored. Because one, that would imply that this demon hunts other demons, which means there's some kind of, hierarchy, or, there is a demon that hunts demons. That's clearly a divergence of the single-minded, like, crazy bad demon, right? He's clearly like an anti-hero of some sort in that world. But two, in that same scene, he chops down on Miko. They make it seem super horrific, a lot of jump cuts and stringy violins, and boom.
Nothing.
Exhibit A.
She peed herself.
She did. But why? Why? She or no one around her has ever been hurt or affected as so much as Hana got hungry. That's really it.
I guess I wonder that like power emitted off Hana. They just done a dog shit job of showing like actual negative effects to these people, because it would be nice to see like as her aura gets dimmer, she like turns into like not a bubbly little, whimsical demon.
So that's my highlight number 2. I actually kind of liked the way they used the side character in a slice of life in this show. Hana being our big titty trope, she actually had a little bit more agency, or at least from a narrative standpoint, a little more gravity, where she happened to have a lot of life aura, as they call it. And demons seem to really like to feed off of that. We actually had a demon, this is super cool, in episode 6, I believe. He was literally taking smaller demons, putting it inside of her life aura, cooking them in her life aura, and eating them like little chicken nuggies.
Right.
What an interesting
little dino nuggies.
Little dino nuggies, dude. What an interesting use. Like, I actually found that to be pretty cool. Like, that was a really awesome. But we found out later that in an overall narrative, the reason why her character, one of her tropes, is she's always hungry, and they joke in a slice of life way that, oh, she has an overactive metabolism, all the calories go to her big ass tits. That's fine. But from a horror supernatural element, it's because other demons are not only attracted to it, but will siphon off that aura. And we saw a very clear visual scene where when she grabbed a bun out of her bag and wharfed it down, her aura went back up like a light. Right. And I'm like, that's really interesting. I liked that. So, like, that cool tie-in between slice of life, comedy, and horror, I think was on best display in just that one little moment. That was cool.
Yeah, I thought she was kind of an interesting character, because she might actually be the horror aspect of the show. What I mean by that is Miko being afraid of being able to see her aura like recede into her body as like, and it seems like all these, yokai are just like slurping all over her body, right? Like, as a friend, like that would be very anxiety inducing, right? And so I can understand as that is like, they should change the show to maybe anxiety comedy and like weak comedy at that, because it's really like, it would be a situation where if you put yourself in Miko's shoes, you would be like constantly strung out on the like absolute periphery of your nerves. There's a scene actually early on. She's in bed trying to go to sleep after the first time that she sees these yokai. Yeah. And like something pops up in her like sheets.
Yes. It's this tiny demon that keeps saying mama on her stomach. That was pretty fucked.
Shot.
That was actually pretty fucked. I was like, okay. And there are moments in this show that like definitely have scenes of proper horror. I just don't think they follow through on them, but that was a good one. The one thing I like about the coupling of Miko and Hana was this kind of separation of duties in the horror troping, where Miko could see the play out of a horror trope, but Hana was the dumb kind of ditz who initiated the horror trope. Think of the scene with the locker, right? Where the horror trope of you open a locker, and she even said it out loud, and this is where one of the moments where I thought was like really funny. She's like, you ever get tired of that trope where you open a locker or look in a mirror and like you just see a ghost behind you or something like that? She said, don't you hate that trope where you look inside of a locker and there's just a ghost in there? And she opened the locker, but Miko saw the ghost up top. They diverged the responsibility of an entire horror trope between two characters. So while one initiated, the other one had the cathartic, like, kind of follow through of that. That was a very interesting use of the slice of life and comedic effect and the horror element. And then they kind of followed through again where she's like, well, because Hana opened the locker and Miko saw the head sitting on top of the locker top shelf. And then Hana was like, I can't reach my phone. Can you reach up there and get it for me? Where the and in Miko's mind, like, that's where the head's at, the severed head.
Yeah,
but to Hana, it's nothing.
Another
right?
situation, that was annoying to me because I'm like, you put the phone there, like all of a sudden you can't reach it now.
But to her, God damn it, you're right. God damn it, you're right.
I don't know. It's just
I
like
didn't even think about it.
they're trying to heavy-handedly do these tropes, and it's just like.
But the heavy-handedness is the responsibility of that heavy-handedness is shared amongst two characters, which I think they didn't play on nearly enough.
I mean, it was okay. Like, once again, none of this was even really scary at all.
No,
like
it
that
wasn't,
situation. She just saw like Hana's hand was in the thing's face and didn't do anything. So just freaking grab the phone and walk away.
Right. But like I said, these self-imposed rules had no legs.
Yeah.
Because Miko just decided that if I don't acknowledge them, they're not going to hurt me. No one told you that. No one told you that. Like, either they don't hurt anybody, see her or not, or they hurt everybody, see her or not. So,
I think there was like a couple. I don't know where to fit this in, so I'm just gonna break up the flow here.
Just
and do my own
just
thing.
Just shove it in, dude.
There was a couple like kind of aspects I did enjoy that I thought were gonna be like kind of recurring themes and like
let's get this
direction.
Show. There's a little bit of love to have here. Let's
which
give it some love.
There was a couple situations where. Okay, question before I get into it.
Yep.
Did she see her dad?
Yes.
I don't think so.
What?
She acted like she didn't see him at all.
Well, she ignored all spirits, good or not.
No, I know, but like, even her, I don't know. It was just very, very odd. I couldn't tell whether she was reacting to what her brother and mother were saying, or if she was reacting to what her dad was saying.
I went back.
Little cake thing she drops on the altar.
So I think her chestnut pudding.
Yes.
That was the little thing she had. I think she did in fact react to her dad because she did hear about her boyfriend. Like, he was joking about her boyfriend and the fact that the brother and the mom were talking about how her father last year ate that pudding that she had the special yearly edition. And he said, I'm real sorry, but I didn't mean to do that, man. I genuinely, I'm sorry. But I think her giving the pudding to that altar they have for her dad inside of their home was her way of saying, like, it's okay. Like, truly. And,
right.
And then I
can see it both ways where, like, yes, or she didn't see him, like, apologizing, but felt kind of compelled based on the conversation.
That was I felt.
But it was, like, a good scene.
It was. Overall, like, that drop that the dad was dead and, like, sudden, like, there are we said on top there's gonna be spoilers for the show and we don't even care, but the father being dead.
Yeah,
we already said it, but like the father being dead.
We're doing a season 1 review. If you haven't seen season 1, like, don't watch this. I don't know what to tell you.
It's a solid show. I'll stay it right now, but that scene was probably one of like the 2 emotional scenes that I had.
Yeah,
and it was just really nice to see that, like, she kind of recognized that they were having a conversation, all 3 of them, because she would have had the knowledge of her father passing prior to her seeing spirits.
Right.
This I knew. Like,
but like, tell me you.
Like, she wouldn't have been oblivious to her father being dead at that point, right? And him suddenly showing up, right? That would have been different.
If you could see your dead relative and talk to them, and they're like, he seems like a good one, right? Like, you could see the, like, different color of the aura.
Sure.
Like, you would think she would, like, walk over and want to talk to him.
And that's why the scene was actually quite well done. Is because if you remember, the entire time that happened, there was a dark demon in the background of every scene where her dad was. It wasn't necessarily attached to her father. It was just there, so she was forced to ignore out of fear.
I don't know.
That's how I see it. Is that she knew there was a darker demon.
And it brought up a lot of questions for me. Is like really all I was going for.
And he got to apologize, which is really cool. I don't know if he knew that she could see her, but I like the fact in that moment that she was ignoring everything because he was still apologizing, knowing or at least believing that she couldn't see him. And I knew that he didn't know. I know that she was ignoring all of it, good and bad from a visual standpoint, but he got to say it to her, And there's there's an overarching theme in this show of being able to express your true self. I think that scene in the haunted house was a really cool scene where she had been living this life of being exposed to literal supernatural horrors and never getting to react in fear. And in the haunted house, she got to actually scream and be afraid of something, and that was pretty cathartic. That was a really cool
Agreed.
scene. So like, and there was actually a demon in there, and mixed among the actors was an actual demon, and she got to say what she wanted to say. Stop following me. Go the fuck away. Literally bounce. And
I think that's the ED song.
yeah, it was. Yeah, and that's how you knew there was an actual fucking scene, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
one of the
did
bigger
like.
scenes.
I liked the OP and ED as well. They were
OP
both
was-
very good.
OP kind of graded on me by like episode 6. ED slapped all the way through.
Yeah.
In my mind.
But then the other kind of scene that I thought I really wanted to see more of was there was this scene. It must have been episode 4 or 5, maybe 4 or 5, where she's just walking around and she is walking down the stairs. She sees this like little form, like all like miasmic. And then she keeps walking and it grabs her. And I'm like, oh my God, did this just change the whole script?
Right, actually literally physically touch her.
And it just turns out to be like basically a old as hell lady that's like 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot out of the grave
So
kind
she
of scenario.
saw a bit of energy out of her. Yeah.
And then she ends up taking her home, and it turns out she's got like Alzheimer's and all these problems. And then there's this other yokai kind of just like lurching around.
Fun fact, we saw it in episode 1. It was one of the ones that were there, the dude in the tie that cracked his neck in like episode 1. Same dude. Same design, same everything.
I didn't pay attention enough to know
Sorry, that was on me.
that. But he ends up saying numbers.
Yeah.
And she's like, she can't tell what the numbers are related to, right?
She kind of punched him in anyway into her phone.
Well, she's with the old lady.
Yeah.
And he just keeps repeating the numbers over and over again. So she's like, all right, maybe these mean something. She puts the numbers into her phone. Then the old lady gets to like brain blast, goes in and
Jimmy Neutron style.
is finally able to open like the grandpa's or her husband, I guess, is like
They're safe. Yeah.
Which had like all of these, old, I guess, nostalgic heirlooms for the family.
And gifts that he had given her.
Right. And so
Yeah.
she's able to like regain part of her like essentially life that's been locked behind this safe.
And for a moment with the daughter that's been taking care of her, that had not, like, she's like, she didn't remember her own name. She doesn't know who I am.
Right.
And it's like, literally called her up by name. Let's go make dinner. And
Right.
just like, I got my mom back.
Yeah, she looked like she was like kind of back to normal. And it was reminiscent to the scenes early in Bleach where Ichigo with this new power would go around and he'd actually like help people move on or help these soon-to-be hollows move on.
What was so interesting to me of the difference, because I felt the same comparison, that the difference between Bleach and Mieruko-Chan was that, Ichigo helped the dead move on from the world of the living. Mieruko-Chan used her power to see the world of the dead to help the world of the living, which is very interesting to me, is that she gained otherworldly knowledge like a true medium would to truly help.
To be fair, I think that was the only instance she actually did anything helpful for humanity either.
And this is the first thing that I was like...
But let me finish quick.
No, I got you.
The old guy, he ends up saying thank you.
Yeah.
And then you see him the next day getting eaten by that other demon.
Yes.
And I kind of viewed that as maybe the gates that you see in like Six Paths, like the resurrection gate, that eats them.
The Samsara?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh.
And then he's
interesting.
Put back into the cycle because he's finally dealt with what he had to deal with.
That's cool.
And they're all queuing for that line. So you kind of think, okay, I don't know. That's kind of what I put together.
Another interesting moment of that could have been a convergence of true horror and comedy, where like in that moment she's horrified because she's about to get found out by a whole gaggle of demons because she went into the wrong line.
Yeah.
And she would only have done that if she saw all the demons. So like she's about to get exposed, but Hana saved her a bit from that, and then saw that the line was the demons getting eaten by what looked like King Hanma or whatever, like the king of the underworld. Yanma, that's what it was. Yeah. So like that could have been another close convergence, but not quite, of horror and comedy. But yeah, like that's a really cool thing. Like,
but I was hoping there'd be more of that where she like realizes she can actually make a difference for some of these demons.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what they are, yokai, ghosts,
spirits,
and go around and actually start helping the ones that seem like more salient and sentient.
I think
thought that would have been a much better use of the show's time. Because as it stood, probably the first 6 episodes were a complete waste. Probably even the first 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And then it just got like, the story got better, the characters got better, like everything got better in that last kind of 5 episodes.
And I wanted to bring that up because I think, in that first 60%, I was really questioning what the community was trying to sell me, right?
Yeah.
I was like,
y'all suck at watching anime. Because I legitimately fell asleep episode
So
2.
a lot of them were calling it a good horror outing.
Right.
And even to the end, I would say there is only maybe a couple moments, which I'll get into in a second, where I think the horror really came through.
Better get to it. We're about 50 minutes in.
Well, shit, right? There are a couple moments where I think the horror really came in, but the horror really had nothing to do inherently with the demons themselves, but the people that surrounded them, which was telling. But as far as the quality of the show goes, it really hit its stride in that final 40.
Right.
And I think it set something up for what I think you and I were hoping for. I think that this second season is going to be everything we did hope for. And I'm actually quite hopeful. I think I will come back to Mieruko-Chan if it has the second season. I'm in for that. And I'll tell you why. Because if you remember, in the first, I would say like 4 episodes, I think it was the 4th episode or 5th episode, where they found the stray cat. And they went to the park and said, hey, anyone who can adopt this cat, we're going to be in the park for a while. Come pick it up. And we had that sketch guy come up, but then this really kind-looking dude come through and say, hey, I saw you, you had this cat. I really want to adopt it. And Mieruko-Chan, very fresh to her powers. Sorry, Mirko. Not Mirko. That's
your cousin.
That's my fucking cousin. Shout out to Mieruko. I'm sorry. It's literally, Mieruko, I'm sorry. It's literally this character is your name minus an R. Yeah. So Miko sees this man literally brimming with negative demonic energy. And it's like, and it looks almost feline. And it's just like, fuck that guy. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
We find out later, in one of, if not the best drop of this show, that this guy that was a rando in episode 4, in episode 7 or 8, he comes into the classroom because their prior teacher was pregnant. He drops and says, hey, my name is Zen. I'm your new teacher while your other teacher is on maternity leave. And it's the same guy, literally brimming with the most demonic energy we've seen in this entire show, and Miko is freaking the fuck out. That was the only time I was filled with a genuine sense of dread, like, oh my fucking God. Holy shit.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, the horror's coming through now. We in this.
I think actually the episode before that as well, there was this entity hanging around that woman's baby.
Oh,
and I was pretty worried about that too, because she said like she had already had a miscarriage, and so I was like, oh shit, is it the thing that killed her first kid? And then we find out it's like her previous baby.
Yeah, the spirit of the first baby kind of giving the blessing to the second. And like, but the weird thing that Miko said was like, don't like be careful about stairs and stuff. I'm like, yikes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, I guess. But yeah, this character.
Don't piss your husband off.
Yeah, don't piss your husband off.
Jeez.
One little shove. Oh no. But yes, this like redhead classroom of the elite looking motherfucker, like truly, like he comes in the classroom, he is like looking menacing as fuck. He calls himself Zen, and Miko's freaking out. I think like the rest of the audience was. The rest of the season actually landed pretty well with the fact that Miko, through her own admission, mislabeled the guy, snapped judgment the dude, and thought he was this cat killer and just destroying felines left and right on the streets. Turns out, the man was trying to protect these sweet little boys and gals because there was an actual cat killer on the streets that we don't actually know about. And we learn from his past that he was tortured by a very psychologically abusive mother, that while she may had passed, the baggage she left manifested as a demon of her on his psyche, and all of the dead cats, not only his own, because his mother did kill his first cat, so fucked, but the cats in their neighborhood that he was trying to save, we'd learn later, kind of through the lore of this world, that those who are sympathetic to certain deaths, the spirits of those deaths will strap themselves to these individuals. So he's getting strapped with all these like poor feline souls, but also the soul of his mother. So he just got demon energy out of the wazoo because he's trying to save these people. trying to save these, not people, literally cats. I don't know why I said people, but these
little fur baby
these little
nuggets.
these little fee popes, like these little little demon babies, whatever. But whatever. So he's kind of straddled with all this negative energy. To Miko's eyes, it is just this awful demonic force.
Yeah.
And that was like that early scene in that next episode of him just walking through the hall and just these massive fucking handprints on the windows. Like, this dude definitely seems menacing.
Yeah.
But us, like her, made a snap judgment. And turns out this demon sight that she has, or this ghost sight, isn't a be-all, end-all. It is just a tool. And what she makes of it is how, she can enact good or not good on this world. So, in the end, we learn earlier in the series, I wanted to ask you about this. What are your thoughts on that scene where they pray at the shrine and she gets a little bit of kami protection?
Yeah, I did think it was wild to me that it took her that long to decide to turn to that. Pretty much instantly would have gone to the temple or whatever church I could have gone to.
Somebody help me out, please.
Literally the day after it started happening.
Sure,
but,
sure.
Beyond that, it was a pretty dynamic scene considering how lethargic that demon was behind, that was following them. It was a little bit like It Follows, the movie.
Yeah. I actually recently watched that for the first time a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
it was
dope.
Movie.
Yeah. But it's kind of like that, where it's just slowly following them, but it's using Hana to bake those little baby demons, like you said.
Fucking wild to me.
But it's also evolving as it's going.
Yeah,
and
right?
So she was getting pretty concerned. Once again, I don't know why.
Never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Never hurt a soul.
Does nothing bad. And then she finally goes up and does her prayers. And then these little kami things come out and just get waxed instantly. And she's like, oh shit, I'm done for.
Yarp.
And then there's this resurgence, second wind, I guess, that went ham on him.
Yeah.
And then they said some weird babble bullshit over her head to her, and then that was it. And then they would pop up when she needed them later on.
So I got a little bit, distracted. So I started watching it in dub.
Man.
But I did catch that this was reversed audio of English. So I did what every smart professor would do, is download a audio reverser on my phone, recorded it, and listened to all of the reversed audio. And it turns out that they had given her a blessing because they saw that she had the sight, but they were more interested in Hana and her spiritual power. She couldn't use any of it, but her life mana was clearly a threat to those around her because she was just this beacon. So they wanted to give the one who could see the protection because they know that she'd be with her all the time because they both made the prayer together. So this is an interesting thing for me because I felt that the latter 40 half of the show landed in part because the stakes were established by the fact that the kami felt they needed to give her some protection. Something else in this show established that these demons are in fact a threat to her. We needed something like that. I found it interesting they used kami or some lower level deities to do that. Right? Why would they want to give her protection? We never saw that they needed protection, but the kami felt so, right? So I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, if they think they're dangerous, they must be dangerous. And finally we have stakes. Finally we have something to show that these things could cause bodily harm. Fine. So they gave her 3 instances where if she's about to get attacked, they would intervene and blast these motherfuckers. Great. I felt the first 2 were contrived because she didn't quite realize. She should have figured out when they destroyed the first demon and they both held up one finger. They disappeared, came into the park, demon attacked her again, held up second finger. She's like, wait, what does this mean? I'm like, fucking open your eyes, Miko. Come on. Seriously. They're literally counting it out. And we heard 3 times in real English from the real god.
See, I didn't hear that. Is it what I...
That was not reversed. That was real in plain English.
Okay.
All he said in real English was 3 times.
3 times.
That's it. That's exactly it. So what I felt was interesting.
They were grotesque, though, to be honest.
All the everything, deities and demons, they were all well designed and grotesque. And the end arc of Zen, where she is basically like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to say that I can see you, and says, you need to let him go. Staring off at the mom, not Zen, but the mom's baggage on Zen. She uses her third protection to kind of exorcise Zen of his mother's. Exorcise the demons. Blessed be your name. Leave this place. All that being said, blast their ass, and, Zen's kind of freed from this, but we end in a place that's quite interesting at the end of this show, where she has a dream that she is offering greater and greater things to the kami, but they're in no way pleased. Some food, a lot of food, all the money in her little frog purse. It's all there, but they are not satisfied with that. And she wakes up. Clearly it's a dream, but foreshadowing nonetheless. Zen heard her words in the hospital after he leapt in front of a car to save a cat, where we find out that he's not actually a cat murderer, he's a cat savior. Halle freaking Luya. And, we learn that he's actually a pretty decent dude, but he caught on pretty quick. What did she mean by set him free? She saw something. He knows. So I think he's going to be part of season 2 if there ever is one. And we see at the end of the season that the kami are quite, in real life, very pissed at her not giving them the reparations, the compensation they deserve for such godly
remuneration.
Yes, for the godly protection they have provided to her, not once, not twice, but thrice, I may add. So we're in an interesting.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird because, she didn't they've done nothing to her for the whole show. So, they're blowing these things away. Is it, to alleviate her fear?
No, but that's the thing, right? Is that I actually really dug the way this was, because they wouldn't.
I heard your explanation.
Thank you.
But I don't necessarily know that that's actually the case.
But, okay. If not my explanation, then what?
I think the show is then what? This show is then what?
Well, them being pissed that it sounds like the favor they had granted her was quite a lofty one.
And then the question is, how the fuck is she supposed to figure out what she's supposed to give these things?
Also fair, yeah.
Is she supposed to chop off her fingers, making up to the Yakuza?
Some John Wick shit, bah! Just like in movie 3.
Chopping off part of their finger?
Yeah, that happened in John Wick too. I just recently
watched it.
What's
the Yakuza thing?
Yeah, it's all, well, fair enough. To each their own, I guess.
Yeah.
But all things considered,
I loved my favorite character, cat lover guy.
Cat lover guy?
The Yakuza cat lover guy.
Oh, the dude with all the tats?
He's tatted out. He's got scars all over his face, and he's always just pretty deadpan, but he's always thinking what would my cat love the most?
Yeah, and in the after credit scene, he's always looking at what do you like, the tuna or the chicken?
Yeah.
He really gives a shit. I love him, and he's only a side character.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that he was going to be the cat murderer kind of as a twist, because we got a couple twists in this show. I thought he was going to be ultimately the cat murderer, but we still don't know who that was. It doesn't matter.
But he had good spirits.
Good feline vibes at the end of the day. Yeah.
Good pussy vibes.
Oh, fuck me.
Pussycat, I said.
Of course, pussycat vibes. Yeah. Duh. But yeah, so do I think it fumbled the beginning? Sure, I think it was a pace that I think a lot of slice of life folk might really enjoy. But, they really started to merge the two genres they had in place episode 8 onward, and I think they're really set up for a very interesting season 2. She has the demons not necessarily on her back, but in her life. She doesn't necessarily have the kami's protection, but in her life trying to get some kind of repayment, and at least a fire in her gut to find a way to not just see these demons and these supernatural forces, but have a way to interact and protect her friends against them. Kind of interesting. I do think we have a really cool lore building here, and it's going at a slice of life's pace, but almost like a horror semi-signing vibe here. Like it's they have all the bones to something that's maybe more our wheelhouse, but up to this point, it was a little too late to give it a really high score.
I
But
agree. I think it was like very watered down by the first 6-7 episodes.
yeah, it
I
really
did want to call out Yulia quick. Like
Sure.
the fact that she has the sight, but only like a weak version of it was interesting to see. Kind of like this, I guess, scale of ability to see things.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder: is there somebody that sees more than even Miko?
Yeah, so if there's a scaling, because we saw the godmother had a little bit of the sight, she
Right.
could see mists, and then, Yulia could see a little bit more, and then Miko just happened to gain like a very high fidelity sight. So you're right, there could be someone more high than that. But I love the idea of their dynamic, Yulia and Miko, where like Yulia was trying to learn from someone more powerful than her.
I loved
And
when in there in the tunnel, and she like
Yes.
thought she was doing all these like
barriers,
Yeah,
she
barrier
tied her
motions.
shoe and then brushed her hands off. Is like, did you just make a barrier? Bro,
instantly.
she couldn't see the big baddie demon that
Yeah.
was just like clapping the other lower demon. She's like, are you just exercising this with a wave of your hand?
Yeah.
So I love the dynamic of like, she wants to see what she wants to see from Miko as like, she's this uber powerful like exorcist. But weirdly enough, the dynamic and the dichotomy is that like, Ulia's like, her research into the book knowledge of this is a lot higher than Miko's, but Miko is a lot more powerful just from a sights perspective. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and that's kind of like the Mob Reagan kind of thing,
Yes.
but reversed a bit. So again, everything has the bones to make a very interesting second season. So I'm curious, at the end of the day,
Yes.
what is your score on this show?
My score is a 68 because it wasn't good enough or funny enough to be a 69.
Damn.
Yeah.
Couldn't even give him the 69.
Nah, bruh.
I'm going to give it a 74. I'm going to give it a
Okay.
74. You know what? No. I'm going to give it a 75.
Look,
'cause it rounds well.
I literally fell asleep in the first 4 episodes.
Wow.
That's a bad show.
Listen. So I really had to power through the first 5. 6 had a dope-ass fight scene, so it kind of woke me up. And then 7 onward, I think I really had a good time. It hit its stride. And the second half really kind of grew to its own. And I think we have a really kind of unique, slightly subversive slice of life. And the horror has a little bit more legs to stand on to really kind of play the merging, not just a subvertive, like, back and forth horror, sometimes then comedy. I saw some sparks of genius in the way you can merge the two, and I'm hoping that 75 score wasn't based on my hope for season 2. I truly think this show is a solid. I think anyone who is a fan of slice of life is going to have a decent time here, plus that extra element of horror. Anyone who's not a slice of life person, you got a bit to drudge through, but I think you're going to have a good time in the second half. 75 is as high as I can give it. I don't think I can go above that. Yeah.
I mean, it was fine. Like,
yeah.
I think definitely if they had just gotten rid of the first 6 episodes, maybe my score would be significantly higher.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was just so fucking boring and like my problem was stagnant.
So,
like nothing happened.
Do you want to know my one scene they could have added that could have fixed the entire show for you and I?
Sure.
Of course. They should have shown.
I was trying to figure out if I should guess a scene.
I mean, you could, but you wouldn't.
Okay.
I would have loved to have seen just one scene. Remember the scene in the beginning where it was that show where it was showing like clearly like a horror short on TV, and
Yeah.
Miko and her little brother was watching the girl getting like attacked by the demon in the refrigerator.
Yeah. Those scenes were way scarier than the actual show.
Make that one scene, kind of make it a 30-second blurb. Hi, my name is Hanato, and I can actually see demons. And she gets attacked and killed by someone when she has been ignoring them for a while and finally recognizes a scary one and that she can see him. And then that one, oh, you can see me, kills her. Then we have stakes for the first 5 episodes. We have stakes. And then she does a little, like Miko does research. If a seer sees and recognizes that a demon can see her, then she is susceptible. That would have made the first 5 episodes have real stakes. Because then it being in your face, we would have known, like, if she looks in that direction, she's fucking done. That's all it would have taken. In my mind. Just give something for all that weird stuff.
I think other options are, like, if some of these situations were taking place at, like, more scary areas
I actually
rather than like broad fucking daylight in school.
That's what I'm saying, right? Give me the edge, give me the teeth from that one scene, knowing that if a seer looks in the direction of a demon, they're fucked. Broad daylight would have made scary as hell. Like, on the bus, like, she can't leave this bus, and the demon knows the moment it looks at that demon, she's dead.
Yeah.
That would have given me some real stakes, and all it would have taken was one 60-second scene of a previous seer dying and maybe being in the news.
Yeah.
Famed psychic died, and then she finally has this power. Like, wait, didn't that psychic die from the same kind of thing? Like,
that's possible.
She would have known. Like,
it would have helped a lot.
Yeah, it would have helped a lot. So I mean, that's all it would have taken, and then they would have gone in the second half and had its stride. So I'm like, okay, that would have made it an 80+ for me. But they didn't do that, and that's fine because it's a slice of life first and foremost. Horror took a back seat.
Slice of life, which means nothing happens.
And if it does, it happens so slow. Yeah. But thank you guys.
The glacial pace of all
thank
slice
you guys
of life.
For coming to the glacial pace episode of this. No, our podcast goes at a lightning pace. Yeah, horrid lightning pace compared to this show. But thank you for coming to class. You know what? Check us out anywhere you get your podcast fix. All the links are in the description below of wherever you're listening to this to. Like, comment, subscribe it. Anywhere you do that thing. If you want to get into the Patreon game, only if you can, patreon.com/Weebology, $1 and up gets you into our Discord with all of our lovely Patreon fans and our past guests. If you listen to any episodes with the guests, they're in there. And then you have links to their podcasts, and we post their podcasts in our Discord. It's a whole interconnected web. The whole thing.
It's really like a metaverse if you think about it.
It's a weeby meshaverse, if you will. It's all there.
Interesting.
Thank you. I'll take the interesting. $3 and up gets you in.
Trademarked.
Thank you. $3 and up gets you in the syllabus sidebar. Our lo-fi high vibes, sometimes anime, sometimes not, sometimes on hiatus, and sometimes visual, show where we riff about life and shit, about other things that we can't talk about on an anime-centric show. There's so many other things in this world, and we talk about them all.
We could talk about it. We just don't.
We don't. And sometimes we do. The Predator. Fuck.
Yeah,
we had a Predator tangent in this episode. What else do you want?
I mean, that made sense.
It did make sense. In the context, it made sense. Let's see what else we got.
That's it.
No, you know what? No. Email us. Any anime that you want us to watch. We have had a big string of IP focused. We had a really cool seasonal preview. We had some riffy metaphysical shit, some philosophical shit lately. But we're getting back into that more show game. So if you want us to watch a show, weebologypodcast@gmail.com. Give us a show. Just say hi. Tell us we're doing good and tell us what we should do better. And we're going to do all those things, or at least put it in a list to then get to.
Yeah, I'll read it.
We'll read it. You guarantee that we will read that.
Yeah. And that's all I can promise. If you tell us we suck, I mean,
we'll read it and your note will be noted and we'll send it to those who noted. Yeah, it'll be noted, of course. But yeah, I think that's it. I think I might have to go and respond to Papa John's real thirsty notification.
Yeah.
I get that stuffed crust game. I think. Maybe.
I don't have an answer. I think obviously pizza is the bomb, so.
Yeah, but it's Papa John's, so what am I going to do, right? But until I can get more of that garlic butter goodness, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this has been Weebology. Deuces. They tried to entice me with that, too.
Yeah.
They're like, just for you, I'll throw in some garlic butter. I'll do it.
I mean, stuffed crust? Now we're talking.
Stuffed crust, we're talking.